Hi, welcome to AP United States Government and Politics Pandemic Online Edition. My name is Mr. Lucas, and this is my second year teaching AP US Government and Politics. So in most years on the first day, I go over the syllabus and introduce myself, and I'll kind of try to do that here by telling you a little bit about myself, but to do that, I feel like I need to be in my classroom chair.
I graduated from Watkins Memorial High School, and when I was there, I did things like musical theater. I was actually the Beast my senior year in Beauty and the Beast. I also was in the vocal ensemble, and I did jazz band as well. I went to Bowling Green State University, and there I also did a cappella groups. I was in a few music clubs and things like that. And I'm currently working on my master's in political science from American Public University. Now, my family is all from the rural hills of Southwest West Virginia. So you may hear me from time to time say things a little bit oddly or with an accent. Perfectly fine to make fun of me. I won't be able to hear you. My dad was in the Air Force during the Gulf War, and he programmed satellites at an Air Force base out in Colorado Springs, which is where I was born, and explains why I'm a big Denver Broncos fan. I've been married for almost 2 years to my beautiful wife, Audrey, who is also a teacher. She actually just started teaching 4th grade math and social studies at Etna Elementary this year. My hobbies include watching and playing sports. I particularly love NASCAR and football. Fun fact, I actually used to race against current IndyCar driver Zach Veach when we race go-karts at Circleville Raceway Park. I've also got hillbilly in my blood, so I love the outdoors and I really enjoy fishing in my spare time. I also enjoy researching my family history on Ancestry.com and finding out stuff about my family's past. I also love to read books. I love to play Xbox. Even though it's been out for like 4 or 5 years, my favorite game is still Battlefield 1. With like the 3 people that still play on a server. And I also love Minecraft, and I got my wife addicted to it this past spring. And probably my favorite thing of all is to play music. In college, I started a folk bluegrass band with some of my buddies, and in more recent years, I've been playing all over the state year-round, except for obviously this year. I play guitar, mandolin, banjo, dobro, steel guitar, and I like to think that I can sing. I've played on a few professional records, and my claim to fame is opening for country music star Tyler Childers before he hit it big back in 2015. Oh, did I mention my wife sings too? We also perform together in our church's worship band on the weekends. Yeah, you better believe when I proposed, I went full Johnny Cash style, in the middle of a show.
Back in my home office now. If you're wondering why I just did that, it's because I just made a video yesterday for my regular government class saying all that, and I didn't really feel like saying it all again, so save myself some time. Anyway, so that's enough about me. I'm sure you're wondering what my class is going to look like this year, and quite frankly, so am I. AP Government is a very different class from regular government. What regular government covers in about a year, we cover in about half the year, and then we do even more. In this class, we really go much more in depth with the content, and those of you that are seniors that took regular government last year, there are things we'll cover this year that we never even talked about last year. Now, it's really important that I tell you up front that this is a very demanding class. Not only do we cover topics in depth, but a lot of the learning in this class is done on your own. There is homework. Now, if you think this is going to be a breeze and you can blow it off and get by, you may want to reevaluate taking this class. That's especially true in this online setting. I know there are some of you that just absolutely love social studies, and that's awesome. But if you don't want to put in the work into this class, don't risk tanking your GPA over it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how an AP class works, it goes a little bit like this. After mastering everything in the course, which I'm sure you all will, you'll take the AP exam in May. Now, traditionally, the exam has a multiple choice component followed by 4 different free response questions. We call them FRQs for short. One question will provide you with the scenario that you must analyze and write on. One provides you with the Supreme Court case you must compare with one of the required Supreme Court cases you should already know from the course. One question will then ask you to analyze and draw conclusions from a set of data. And then there's the big one, the argumentative essay, which requires you to cite required source documents and formulate some sort of an argument. Now, last year, due to the pandemic, College Board, they're the ones who run the AP program, decided to move the exam online and only ask a scenario FRQ and an argumentative FRQ. I have no idea what they're going to do this year, so stay tuned. So if you score a 3, 4, or 5 on the exam, most colleges will accept the score as mastery or at least proficiency of US government and politics, and they will exempt you from a college equivalent class. That can save you lots of time and money in college. Even if you don't plan on majoring in anything political science related, many schools require you to take what's called general education courses, or Gen Ed for short. Usually that means you have to take some sort of a math, science, English, or social studies, and this can count as one of the social studies ones. Now, because this is a college level class, there is a lot of reading in this class. Part of the expectation of this course is that you learn how to read and annotate. Not only are there required documents you have to be familiar with for the AP exam, I expect you to outline each section of the textbook. Now, why would I torture you by requiring this? Well, I was once an AP student myself in high school, and as much as I may have disliked it at times, outlining and annotating readings proved immeasurably beneficial come exam time, and when I got to college, I already had the skill developed, while others were still trying to figure it out. Now, the AP exam is a tough exam, but if you trust me and work hard, you can succeed on it. Over half of last year's AP class scored a 3 or higher. Now, if this is your first AP course, here's some advice from those students I had last year. One student said, finish your outlines before Lucas goes over them. It's so much more helpful and you're not super confused. Someone else said, be prepared to take in a whole lot of information at a quick pace. Test yourself, and if you think you know everything, you don't. Another student said, I'll tell them to do their work, take notes in class, and pay attention to the conversations the class has as a whole. Another student said, it is a lot of homework, but doing it will help you in the end. Another student said, don't forget to do the outlines. Another one said, space out your work as much as possible. Use spare time during school to do or review your work in this class. One more thing, anything you didn't know before you feel is necessary to know, put it in your outline. Random things stick in your brain, especially when it's interpreted by you. So in a typical year, I try to make my class as hands-on as possible as opposed to only doing lectures and readings. I love to do simulations. Actually, to explain this one, I think I might go back to my desk at school.
Typically in the fall, we have a school-wide congressional simulation I put on with Mrs. Griffin's government classes. I mean, we go all out for this thing. We have presidential elections where students run under a fictitious party and they choose their vice presidential running mate. We have presidential debates and then a legit election where every junior in the school votes just like you would in a real election. I mean, we even check your photo IDs when you come into class and we set up little voting booths. After the election, everyone else then becomes either a representative in the House of Representatives or senator in the Senate. There you get to create laws, you can debate them and vote on them, and just about every year, there's at least one class that decides to impeach and remove their president. Oh yeah, and there's also the media where students run their own media outlet. They interview politicians, and yes, they can write slam pieces and fake news. It's a lot of fun. Not to mention, Mrs. Griffin and I like to throw wrenches into the simulation to see how y'all deal with different scenarios. Oddly enough, last November, we created scenarios where TikTok was a national security threat and there was a dangerous virus that came out of China. Lastly, we do an international relations simulation called Guns or Butter, where the class is split into 5 different fictitious countries of varying power. You have to build up wealth by striking alliances and trade deals with other nations, and then you have to choose whether to invest that wealth into health, education, welfare, food, industry, or if you'll invest it into weapons. Then you can choose to attack other nations and steal their resources. But yeah, did I mention there's nukes you can build too? And you can use them. And of course, you can imagine what typically happens when a bunch of teenagers acquire nuclear weapons. This was a live shot from a couple years ago. Now, if C-TEC does decide to permit extracurricular activities, I was supposed to head a new club called the Civic Simulation Club this year, which would do some of those simulations and other ones, such as Model United Nations, for students that want to go a step further and participate after school with others who really enjoy those simulations and those types of things. So since I'll be unable to do any of that this fall, I'm hoping we can do it all in the spring. For the fall, I'm going to have to change things up from how I would normally do them. My hope is that the fall and winter will be centered around learning content, and the spring can be dedicated to practicing the content in those real-life simulations.
And for AP Government, we also do a mock Supreme Court case where you will all serve as Supreme Court justices and go through the same process the real justices do with an actual case. I went all out on that too and did like legit C-SPAN style coverage of this. We'll see if I have enough time to this year. Who knows, I might even have to do like online arguments like the real justices did this past summer. So since I'm going to be unable to do any of that this fall, I'm hoping we can do it all in the spring. For the fall, I'm going to have to change things up from how I normally would do them. It's going to have to, unfortunately, be more lecture and reading based. So anyway, what is my class going to look like? Well, it depends. I'm making this video the Saturday before school starts based on the regulations and guidance we have now. I'm still not even 100% sure. My goal is to record lectures and to post them as Edpuzzles with some questions implanted in them. If you don't know what Edpuzzle is, don't worry, I will post a tutorial on how to use it this week. I will also require you all read and outline each section of each chapter in the textbook. That is 100% sure going to happen each week. You'll submit that over Google Classroom. For required documents and Supreme Court cases you'll have to know, I'll upload those documents and require annotations on a website called Perusal, which will grade your annotations while allowing you to still have a class discussion on the document itself like we would if we were actually meeting in person. I can also jump into the conversation as well. Again, this is all subject to change. If we've learned anything during this pandemic, it's that things are very fluid each and every day. So a few other things. In this class, we critique ideas, not people. I can't emphasize that enough. When we're having discussions, I want you to avoid name calling, ad hominem attacks, and focus on arguments. You will be exposed to people and ideas you disagree with. I guarantee it. Prepare yourself now. You can't let it get to you personally, and you can't get annoyed, or you're going to have a long year and a tough time in life dealing with different people. Speaking of opinions, rest assured you will rarely, if ever, hear my opinion. I make it a personal policy not to share my political affiliation with my students. Parents, if you're watching this video and you're worried about your kid being indoctrinated by a left-wing college graduate or a fanatic Trump supporter, don't worry. I do my absolute best to remain neutral on every issue and to present all arguments from various perspectives of every issue we discuss in class. I remember being a student in classes where I was scared to death to raise my hand to talk because I knew if I offered up a contrary opinion to that of the professor or the teacher, it wasn't going to end well for me. Now, if you don't believe me, here's a little bit of empirical evidence. At the end of every year, I give out a survey to students where they can choose what they think my political ideology is. Here were the results from last year. As you can see, an even number of students thought I was Republican and Democrat, 19% each, with the largest portion thinking I was an independent. I know I have some seniors that are convinced they know what I am, that are in this class this year. But rest assured, these are baseless claims. It's nothing but pure conjecture. As for late work, so my policy for late work could change as the year goes on. If it does, I'll let you know. But for now, it's going to be 5 points off for a late assignment. Keep in mind, during this first 9 weeks, your attendance is also attached to you completing the assignments. So if you don't complete the assignments, it counts against your attendance. However, for my class and my grading purposes as well, if you turn something in late, it'll be 5 points off. Now you might think, oh, that's not a big deal, but most of my assignments aren't going to be more than 30 points, and that will typically add up to at least a letter grade off or more depending on the amount the assignment is worth.
You might be wondering, hey, Mr. Lucas, what happens if I'm working on my computer and then suddenly this happens?
Christ, there was no repress valve.
Maybe it's in quad C.
We've got a computer restart.
I'm gonna reconfigure the RCS.
We've got a
When
pin
these things
light.
fire, it doesn't make any sense.
We got multiple caution and warning, Houston.
You have to let me know before the due date. If you let me know after it's due, that's not going to do you any good. I'm not going to give you an extension.
So this week, keep an eye out on Google Classroom for your assignments. But it's a good idea to check each day in case I have announcements, additional assignments, or I need to fix something each week. Lastly, if you would like, feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Mr_Lucas29. I do post about current events there. I do a little bit of behind the scenes of my life. And from time to time, I'll go live to answer questions or to talk during a presidential debate, State of the Union address, or to even hold a last-minute study session before a test. DM me, though. I never check those, so don't take it personal if I don't respond to you. The way to contact me if you have a question or you're struggling with something is to email me. My email is jlucas@c-tech.edu. You can also email me and try to schedule up a time where we can meet over Google Meet during my office hours, and I will post all of that information for you as well. Please make sure you look over the syllabus this week, take a deep dive into it because there's plenty of other information in there I couldn't really touch on in this video. Hopefully I'll see many of you around the building. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all and have a great first week. Let's do this.